happy to extend the offer of $150K salary with unlimited PTO, stock options, 401K, and also a relocation salary as well.
Great, that's phenomenal, but is this position remote?
Unfortunately, no. So we're willing to offer you $70,000 per year, 5 days of PTO, no relocation salary, but the position's remote.
When can I start?
So I've been giving this a considerable amount of thought. Even ran it by a couple other people, including a white man. He said he overall agreed with me. He just always tries to downplay race, and I don't really let him do that. But that's really the only area where we disagree. Because I've definitely made him see things and think in a way that he never used to previously think. Now he looks at things differently. Again, as I've always said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see how things really move, you can't unsee it. But anyway, so this video is going to be about the fluctuating markets and this gig economy that we're heading into, which overall I think is it's just horrendous. It's horrendous for family structure. It's horrendous for, the society or the model of society as we know it. And there's no telling where this is going to go. In my opinion, this is going to go one of two directions. And that is either you're going to see, white men basically do another January 6th. You're going to see rebellion in the streets. And it's not just going to be white men, because if they go in the streets, then you're going to see everybody else go in the streets, the Antifa and all that, Black Lives Matter. It's just going to be this completely fractured skirmish, type of situation going on. Nothing works. The systems start failing. No one has faith in the political system. No one has faith in the courts. Anything that they disagree with, they claim that it's some conspiracy theory against their side. So there's that. And then there is the, going to war, to get us out of this economy. Because if you look at American history, it's like, or even the history of many other nations, when the economy's bad and people are infighting and all that, let's go to war. And then we go to war, fight a common enemy, and then there's that whole post-war, there's the industrial war economy, and then there's the post-war economy, and then there's men, they've seen the hardships and the horrific acts of war, and then everybody's more focused on especially young men starting their lives, getting married, and all that other stuff, and then you basically have this like new economy. But the way I see it with this gig economy, I think that black men are much more geared towards the gig economy than white men are. Because I've been looking at the comments on YouTube, and it's the same classic stuff. And I'm gonna get to that in a second. We're gonna talk about this.
Siri knows many things.
That's cool. But so I'm going to talk about this, like, what is the gig economy? The gig economy is pretty much everything that you see with social media. There's all different ways, to make money now. And I'm saying black men have basically been shunned from the private sector. When you look at the job numbers of African Americans when it comes to the private sector, especially black men, they're essentially not there. There's way more black people who work at the state and government level because of affirmative action or, other policies to try to diversify, where they can get those jobs. They can get full medical and dental working for the government, but that's not where wealth is made. That's not where wealth is generated. Wealth is generated in the private sector. But unfortunately for black men in particular, there's too much racism in the private sector coming from white supremacy, racist white males in positions of power, racist white females. Black men have always had to deal with that. And so, that has, created like what we see, people resorting to criminal activity, illegal activity, or, in some way to supplement, even if they have a legitimate job. They got a side hustle. Black people are used to the whole having to hustle. I mean, our women are the first women to jump up and say, I don't want to date a 9-to-5 nigga. Right. because in that environment, that is what people do. And, now that has, respect and, again, connected to the street culture that has been promoted over the last 30 years via hip hop. You got the theme music behind it. I'm a hustler, all that. So the black community is way more geared towards, hustling, private sector. I mean, I see brothers, if I go on Instagram right now, you got guys flipping houses, you got guys renting out Airbnbs, you got guys day trading, you got guys doing the whole what do you call that? Like doing Toro with cars and flipping cars and everything. So there's guys that are making a tremendous amount of money doing other things that even 20 years ago it wasn't an option because the internet wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. That's why I kept telling, young black men, write code, not rhymes. We need to get into the IT, we need to get into the social media, we need to get into all that. But the black community, or black men in particular, are more oriented towards that because they've always had to circumvent racism and white supremacy in order to put food on the table for themselves and for their family. White men, on the other hand, they've had a pretty secure spot for about the last, 70 years or so, since the end of World War II, which is, America had a strong manufacturing base. And a lot of today's white men's greatest downfall are their white male fathers who grew up in an era of, that whole hard work model, either go and get a job in some factory somewhere, get your full medical and dental, put 30 years in and get your pension and retire and then go fishing, or, go to college, get an education, for those that are not, blue collar workers, but like a step above, or the blue collar workers put their children through school. And so by the 80s, you had a strong white middle class of, white men that, were making money, basically being, cronies in corporate America. And that went on for, up until, I'd say up until the financial crisis of like 2009, 2011, until then. Right. And how do I want to say this? The boomers, like if you look at the comment sections on YouTube, right? I've talked about how the comment sections are like profoundly racist. The white guys, they come in the comment sections, they foam at the mouth, they see black criminality and they're like, pull yourselves up by the bootstraps, get a job, these folks are lazy, all that stuff, right? And the boomers are trying to throw that even onto their young white children, or I shouldn't say young white children because they're not really young, but they're adolescent to adult children, and they're not buying it. They're millennial children, or I go another generation, even with the Zillennials, having to listen to their or Generation Z, not the is that the Zillennials, Generation Z with their grandparents. Like when you look at white Antifa is nothing but a bunch of suburban white kids. And when you listen to the way that all these conservative channels on YouTube and they talk about the Antifa, and I'm like, you're talking about suburban white kids. Black people did not come up with the phrase, okay, boomer. That's white people who came up with that, addressing, their parents and their grandparents. Because that whole template of go somewhere and work for 30 years and get your pension and retire, that's gone. But yet you'll have, the boomers who are the grandparents now. You have the boomers that are running around that have this mentality that, there's plenty of jobs out there and anybody who doesn't want to work, they're all lazy, right? But the thing is this, they've been using that against black people forever. right? Black people are just lazy. That's the end of the story. They're just like that. They're dysfunctional people. They're this, that, and the third, completely ignoring the whole context of, everything that was done to the black community to cripple it, redlining, blockbusting, eminent domain, urban renewal, COINTELPRO, dumping of narcotics in the black community, CIA, Iran, Contras, assassination of black leaders, denial of FHA loans, the purging of black communities, Tulsa, Elaine, Arkansas, Ocoee, Florida, Rosewood, freaking Slocum, Texas, all East St. Louis, all that shit, right? They completely ignore, the ways in which the black community has been crippled. And so they just run around and they say, y'all need to pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. But they try to now apply that to their own children and grandchildren who are failing. This is why I made the video talking about, how I felt that, white supremacy is in decline. Because their whole model, and this is, I've been trying to explain this forever. White people have constantly fallen, especially white men, have fallen into that thinking they're good because they're the overseer. They're watching the slaves, they're watching the black people, as long as they stay, in that position, that they're good, and they're somehow, the holding it down for the, the entire system of white supremacy, and that the white elites are patting them on their head and rewarding them, which for a long time they were. But that rewarding them has essentially dried up and stopped. It's the same argument I make about, when you look at a lot of the race riots in America, they were because of, they were worker riots. They were because, whether they were bringing black people to work at lower wages and pay them less, or whether they bring in Mexicans at lower wages and pay them less. Like, I just found out about the Zoot Suit riots. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's all Mexicans out there in LA. So there's always been this constant situation where white men, when it comes to that position of being able to provide stability, that, whenever they feel threatened, they go berserk. They go berserk, even though it's the white elites that are undercutting them. They go berserk. Bringing them any other minority group, they start flipping out. They go out there in the streets and they start beating people over the head. They start rioting and all that other stuff. It is, again, this is why CRT is needed. But if you go through the litany of, white American history, the true violent history of white American history, you'll see it. This is how the shit goes. So anytime the economy, anytime white men as a collective take a hit, they go ballistic. They can't handle it, because the way that white supremacy is set up is it tells them that, they are, that they are the standard, that this position will always be maintained. At the very least, this level right here will always be maintained. They will always, at the bare minimum, they can buy a home and they can, have a Ford F-150 truck. That's the bare minimum. As long as you get up every day and you go to work, unlike these lazy black folks, as long as you get up every day and you go to work, you'll be able to buy a house, buy a Ford F-150, have a rancher home, and marry Matilda from high school, Matilda the cheerleader, and that's what they've always bought into. But now all that shit is in serious decline. You see? And so the only advice that the boomers have to give is, it's because these people are lazy. So they see everything that's going on and it's like lazy. But I'm like, they can use that against black people, which they have. And because black people are not members of their community, black people don't have the same level of entitlement as your average, run of the mill white person. But trying to use the same arguments against their own that they've used against black people, that's not going to work, because white men have way too much entitlement. They're not going to tolerate the whole, it's because, you're lazy or you're not working. Again, like I said, black people didn't come up with the okay boomer argument. That was white men that came up with the okay boomer shit. This current generation, of zillennials, came up with that, okay boomer. When freaking gas was a nickel, and rent was like $100, and freaking college was, you $5,000, or you could pay for college off, with a summer job. You know what I mean? People literally now, like the zillennials, they got a debate on whether they want to go, $100,000 in debt to go to a decent university. I don't know what the tuition what it was. You want to go Ivy League school? Oh, forget about it. You're talking, $72,000 a year or something crazy like that. Then you start talking about buying a home. And because the way that generationally homes have been seen as investment property, all it does, it's one big fat Ponzi scheme. Each subsequent generation ends up paying more for an older house. I mean, seriously. Remember when Kevin used to ask, what increases in value with use? What did he say? Use and age. What increases in value? Now, Kevin used to act like it was nothing. No, actually, it's real estate. It's real estate. Like I said, those houses over there in Levittown, Pennsylvania, they want $350 to $400,000 for those homes. Those homes were built in 1947. You see what I'm saying? So, and then people are, throwing around phrases like, "Ooh, get you a little starter home." There is no starter home, because when those houses were built in Levittown, they were built subsidized by the government for returning soldiers. So those houses, they put like, $10,000 down on the house, prior to all the feminism and whatnot. A man could graduate high school with nothing but a high school diploma, go work in a factory, get paid full medical and dental, unionized wages, buy a home, have a stay-at-home wife, and have probably one or two vehicles, and send the kids to college. That was all, before feminism and the attack on patriarchy and everything else. Like, a white man could solidly be in the middle class. And that's what white men have always essentially represented. It's what they represented. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because I'm looking at the rise of white nationalism. I'm looking at all I talk about the, white men trying to reclaim their masculinity by running around, and, they want to be Vikings now, and so, you see this with the Proud Boys. You see this with Patriot, Patriot Front. You see this with, what's the other organization, out there, the Richard Spencers and Jared Taylors and American Renaissance and all that stuff. You see all this stuff, right? All this, and more white men moving in that direction. They're moving in that direction because they're failing. They're failing. They're not doing as well, as people would like to, project out there. I mean, relative to black people are like, yo, we don't care. Like, we've always been doing bad. Fuck your tears. You know what I'm saying? But but to white Americans, their quality of life is going down. With the rise in gas prices, Blackstone buying up all the properties again. I see all these comments, people bitching about Black Lives Matter in comment sections, even when the thing has nothing, it slightly has to do with race, and they'll bring up Black Lives Matter. Bitching about Black Lives Matter or making some joke about LeBron James. And I'm like, what does Black Lives Matter have to do with Blackstone going in and buying all these properties to the point that you can't purchase anything? You can't purchase a home, right? Interest rates are like what is it, 5.9, something crazy, right? What do black people have to do with that? And again, I keep saying that your average run-of-the-mill white person they don't look in the mirror. They don't recognize that, like, again, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, classism comes before racism. In Europe, it was kings, queen, nobles, and peasants. America was a penal colony. Australia was a penal colony. And they sent the people over there. Yeah, we'll give you this if you go over there, which is ultimately going to make us richer. We'll give you a little something. Oh, here, William Penn. Yeah. All that's Pennsylvania. Yeah, you get that. But we need you to do X, Y, and Z. You see? So, that's how their model, worked. They never truly cared about the masses. And this is what, Christopher Hedges talks about. This is what Noam Chomsky talks about. This is what Michael Rupert talked about. The guy that did Collapse, the video. I don't know if you ever seen the documentary Collapse, but he deleted himself back in 2009 or something like that. So many people have talked, many scholars have talked about, this sort of oligarchical ruling white class. But your average run-of-the-mill average white person, they don't focus on that. They go right into the cultural wars. They go into, no, the problem is liberal versus Republican. The problem is Black Lives Matter. The problem is, we need to bring Jesus back into the White House. Like, Jesus ain't going to bring these factories back. I watched that documentary about Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is where this guy that's running against Dr. Oz in the Senate or whatever, where he's from, but Braddock had a steel mill there, and they had this, like, he was like I don't know how old he was. I want to say he was like 66. And he was talking about bringing the factories back, and that's why I voted for Donald Trump for the first time. Like, them factories aren't coming back. Okay, the coal mines in Appalachia, they're not coming back. Unless the United States goes to war. And these, like, average run-of-the-mill white folks, these middle America white, they haven't grasped that concept yet. And so, to even take it further, right, I think about Dylan Roof, right? I think about the guy who shot up the AME church. I think about the guy that went in the top supermarket and shot up the top supermarket, right? What was part of his justification? Even though, he was focused essentially on everybody who was non-white, but he was like, I can only pick one place. I can't, that's going to focus on one particular group, because it's not like black people, Jewish people, and freaking, Indians and Mexicans all hang out at the same spot. They don't. So he had to pick one. But even in there, one of his justifications was, in his manifesto, was that, black men were basically stealing white women and whatnot. And here's the thing, right? Like, no, women are not loyal. And this is the illusion that I feel like, white supremacy has had about itself for a long time, even going back to, A Birth of a Nation, the creation of miscegenation laws and all this shit, right? Making black men, this sexual threat. I haven't seen a white guy. I've heard all this stuff. Dylan Roof was like, you rape our women. The guy that shot the Shops supermarket was like, they're stealing our white women and all this other shit. But I've never seen, actually, no, I take that back. Because that has happened. Because in California, I'm saying it hasn't happened in terms of mass shooting for the purposes of another group being a sexual threat. But I'm saying it has happened in the past with riots like out there in California. They burned down the Chinatown in San Francisco. You know why they did that shit? Was one of the justifications because the Asian community was luring white women into their brothels with opium, right? The opium dens. Again, going back to a lot of the first laws against narcotics were made because of fears of non-white men being a sexual threat. Same thing with cocaine. They used to give cocaine to the dock workers, black dock workers, because it would make them work harder, right? That's how cocaine worked. That's why, like, the freaking Incas and all that shit, that's why they use that shit. That's what the coca leaf does. They used to put it in Coca-Cola, right? But then, they wrote a couple of articles about some crazed blacks that were high on cocaine that were running around raping white women. And then they were like, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. So there's always been this whole aspect of the sexual threat. And you see that.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Will you stop? You see that with the sort of these mass shootings that are racially motivated, and especially the ones that focus on black men. And again, I've already talked about how pornography does not help. Blacked.com, all that shit, interracial pornography almost exclusively and literally means black man on white female. I'm like, interracial could be any Nope. It's black man, white female. That's it. So all of this creates this sort of, this threat. Again, especially with these young Generation Z, like they grew up seeing Obama president for 8 years, right? Even though he's biracial, interpret him as a non-white, a black man, right? So then that was a threat, right? Then you end up following that up with Donald Trump, and then all the shit that Donald Trump was saying, and then we had this, this anxiety post, Obama, this white backlash, because of that sense of a threat, right? So, all of that in conjunction with the economy, not turning into this gig economy that again white men are not used to. Your average white man thought like, I'm gonna graduate high school, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna work, in some factory or some building or some blue collar work, because I come from a long line of blue collar, and my grandfather worked there, and my father worked there, and they're telling me, I gotta go and get a job, here or there, right? But completely ignoring like the declining industry. It's like these people they don't they're not investing in properties. They're not making other moves. All they have is that job. And for a long time, in the system of white supremacy, white men always secured that. Even that video, that documentary I watched in the riots of East St. Louis, white men were making 35 cents to the dollar and black men were making 17 cents to the dollar. So they've always had that, like, think about, like, again, because women are not race loyal. I know people like to think that. No, women are race loyal. Women go for the winners, what they perceive as the winners. But the thing is like, going back to that whole sexual threat, right? You got, before it was in the 80s, it was NBA players, it was rappers, right? And even educated lames have to deal with this problem. Where the street culture, not only did it get, the narco economy, the underground, which hasn't happened in any other group. The Yakuza in Japan are not all over the billboards. The mafia in Italy are not all over the billboards. You know what I'm saying? The triads in China are not all over the billboards. But in the African American community, the underground, the drug economy is all over the billboards, and then it has the theme music. So that's been an issue for black men internally, but it's also been an issue outside of the community, because all of a sudden those men ended up symbolizing and representing wealth and status and all that shit, right? Then you throw in like TV shows like The Kardashian. So now you have, and then you throw in the interracial pornography. So it's this constant reinforcement of black men as a sexual threat. And now you have social media. You see, that's adding to that. And brothers that are making money on social media, brothers that have Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and buy my merch and check out my merchandise and check out my YouTube channel. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. You see, there's other avenues of making money and then telegraphing this that's not coming through mainstream media. Most young people are on social media. They're not on television. Television used to provide somewhat of a filter, to this. But now, I mean, there's some of the most egregious things that you can find on social media and the sort of interactions, that people are having that, you can imagine your average white guy is not going to freaking like. If he's sitting there and the plant shut down and he can't get that job and he can't get that Ford F-150, he already feels entitled, because he grew up in this isolated area where there's no other minorities around, and he has this very narrow, myopic view of what it is to be an American and what America is and everything. And yet you got people in the cities that are doing other things. I mean, even I saw the TikTok video of Waka Flocka. He got ran up on at the gas station by a dude that was asking, like, ain't you Waka Flocka? And then he's asking him about, how does a young man make money? And Waka wasn't talking about the drug game or any of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Waka wasn't talking about, I go hard in the motherfucking paint, nigga. Like, no. Walker was like, nah, what you got to do is you got to get you, you got to get you a LLC, and then you got to get you an S Corp, and then you got, like, he's talking about shit that niggas wasn't talking about before. You see, so what you see now with this gig economy is you see a decentralization of the economy, which for black people is good. For your average white guy, A lot of them don't know how to deal with it. And I'm talking about your average middle America rural. I'm not talking about your white guys that are on Wall Street that are quickly able to adapt. I'm talking about the white men that are not able to adapt. And these are the ones that either end up going the white nationalist route, run around angry, show up at Charlottesville, got their shields and shit like that, the little plastic shields out there, run around talking about who will not replace us. You know what I'm saying? Those guys are not doing well financially. You know what I mean? Hell, the men that stormed the Capitol, it's been proven that a lot of them are actually doing better than what people actually think. There you had middle-aged men in there that were own businesses and shit like that. There was a lot of stuff that went on there. But when you get into like that sort of white nationalist, that whole sense of we're losing our place, and then again tying it and linking it to freaking Scandinavia, and like even the guy that stormed the Capitol with the horns and shit like that, he had the Volk knot, which is like the three triangle Triforce of Wisdom looking thing, on his chest, and then he had some other Scandinavian tattoos that he put on himself. I already talked about how if you go on YouTube right now, there's a whole bunch of Scandinavian videos of actual Scandinavians that are like, yo, stop freaking culturally appropriating our shit and trying to link it to white supremacy. They're like, stop that shit. You see, so I mean, just looking at it, looking at the fact that women go, in the winner's circle, and now you have this avenue where black men, are able to, make money. And I'm not talking about all the collective of black men. Let me be clear about that, because you say, it's like, there's not that many black men that are marrying outside the race. It's just not. That's not the reality. Majority of people stick within their own group. But the issue is you have the representation of that amplified by social media, and you have the fact that essentially women are only dealing with the top 10%. Women of all groups are only trying to deal with the top 10% of dudes. You see what I'm saying? So the top 10% of men, and we can obviously, I mean, the white people outnumber black people like 5-1 in America. So obviously there's going to be more white men in that top 10% space. But what I'm saying is that doesn't matter to your average run-of-the-mill middle American white guy when he opens up social media and sees some black dude on there, messing around with a white girl and a Hispanic girl, and two Asian bitches in the back seat of a brand new freaking electric what's that damn Chevy called? The damn a brand new electric EV Hummer. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. And he's not living that lifestyle. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm white. I'm supposed to be the center of the universe, right? Engaging in his own solipsism. And then here you have this black guy with the theme music and all of that that's able to navigate in that space. And that creates anger, frustration, resentment, jealousy, it's a real, fear and that and a threat, to their whole identity, because I noticed like all the focus seems to be on us. It's always on us. The focus always is on us, whether, especially now, as a sexual threat, as, who the enemy is, all that stuff. It's always really on us. Right. And the J people, who they think are like masterminding shit. But the focus really is on us. But I'm saying, like, when black men are successful, I'll be the first one to admit, like, we're loud as fuck with success. Like, we are loud. We are like, check this out. You know what I mean? Like you can see it all over social media. And the other thing is this, like, one of the things that poverty did, I'd say, for black men, and I talked about this before about the how do I want to say this? The skills that you develop in a situation like that. I mean, like, in other words, like, while you have white men running around trying to reclaim their masculinity, black men have already been slapped with the label of being hyper masculine. We went past masculinity. We're hyper masculinity. which I'm not saying is necessarily a good thing, because I think like there's obviously areas where we go overboard, ergo, the black on black crime in Chicago and all that shit. What, fool? Did you disrespect me? Pow, 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 pow. Damn, it's just over some disrespect. You know what I mean? Nigga stepped on my ones. Pow, pow, pow. So it's like, it's like, whoa, that's too much. But at the same time, there's still an allure to that. Even when it comes to game, what is game? Game is, the ability to basically get, something for nothing. You're running your mouth because that's all you have is your mouthpiece. I mean, why is it that Indians and Africans aren't known for having game? Why is that? You know what I mean? Like the only group of Africans that people will say they have game are Nigerians. But what did Nigerians have to do when they were in America? Why do they have the label of crooks and scammers and everything else? What was that? What was that shit called? The 509? What was that called? That scam that they had to do back in the 70s because they got abandoned by the government during the Biafran War, and they basically they stopped paying their tuition and shit like that. So they were stuck here with no money and they had to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? That's what struggle does to you. But the thing is like when you're not struggling, there is no, I had to develop game. And I've seen this conversation before. I was trying to find a video, where this was talked about, this sort of lack of game that a lot of white men have because they relied on I provide stability. And don't get it twisted. Educated lames have this exact same problem. And I don't even think it should be all about game. It really shouldn't. It should be about a balance, a little bit of balance. Like you got to be, funny and entertaining and charismatic. You can't just be, boring. But a lot of men were like, I can be as boring as I want to be because, I'm providing. Right. This is, again, going back to the, Africans and Indians and even Asian guys, nobody's like, oh, they have so much swag and so much game. Why? Because the way that their society's operating and structured, it's like, bitch, do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? I come from a pedigree. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I don't have to have game. Like, chick, this is like a second, third world country. My family's in the government. Like, you need to bow down and get with this, or you can stay in poverty type of shit. But the thing is like in America, like you have women who are working now, right? Remember when I made the statement, what do I need a black woman for? What do I need a black man for? Well, again, white women are saying, what do I need a white man for? Especially if you're struggling, right? And then again, you have all these other avenues of making money. Oh, I can go on OnlyFans. I can shake my ass. I can sell farts and I can sell pretty pictures of my feet, and I can, come up with an Amazon store and all this other stuff. So like, what are the consequences of a white woman not getting with a white man? I'm not saying that there aren't still consequences. I think there's still consequences, oh, you're gonna love her. You know what I mean? Like all that shit. They can talk their shit. But it's not like it's the freaking 1920s, where it's like, you're going to go over there. You know what I'm saying? Like the only guys that would be able to do that were like Jack Johnson or some shit like that. You know what I mean? So I'm saying the white men I'm not here to talk, like encourage, yes, black men, we're winning because we're out there getting white. No, that's not the point of the video. The point of the video is about the secure position that white men have had for a long time, socioeconomically and in the sexual markets. And now all that shit is being tossed up in the air. Because I mean, seriously, across the board, men are failing. Black men have been failing. But now you got white men that are failing. They're talking about 70% of valedictorians at schools are female. 70% of the schools in America are not black schools. They're white schools. But yet, white women are valedictorians, right? Universities are looking at ratios of 60-40 when it comes to boys and girls. I mean, Mary Kay Hoymowitz, that wrote the book about, the failing boys and everything. She wrote that shit like 10 years ago. And nobody was really paying attention. And so like, as the society begins to, I mean, obviously, it failed black people. It most certainly failed black men. And I've said before when I came online that black men are the canaries in the coal mine. The black community as a whole is the canary in the coal mine. And white people were like, oh, not going to affect me. La-di-da-di-da. Right? And now it creeps up into white men's spaces. You know what I mean? It's like when gun control first hit, gun control was used to disarm black populations. And then white men were like, yep, we don't want blacks having guns. Huh, doesn't affect me. And then liberal cities started using those same vague laws. Oh, well, you must have justifiable need and good cause in order to carry a firearm and all that shit. They started using that against white people. So then white people couldn't exercise their rights. I'm like, I don't know why your dumbass co-signed the shit in the first place. And white people have a very bad track record of doing that. When things negatively affect the black people, they're like, oh, that's cool. And then when it starts affecting them, they don't know what to do. They start freaking out. And right now, in my opinion, what you see is a freak out. And because, and again, this is just in my opinion, that black men are more adapted to a gig economy. Uber, Lyft, freaking Uber Eats, what's the other one? All these sorts of things to make money on the side, which I think is a terrible model for America across the board. I don't care what your favorite color is. I don't care what race you're talking about. You know what I mean? I don't even know how you sell an education, at this point, when you got people that are making millions of dollars on social media doing stupid shit. Even when it comes to healthcare, look at the number of doctors that have YouTube channels. People are like, oh, doctors, they're balling out of control. Okay, why does my man have a YouTube channel? Why are they making YouTube channels about stupid shit like, let's look at the ballistic damage to tissue of this video of of some movie or some shit like that. There's a doctor, black guy. He does videos basically talking about the trauma caused by gunshots, reviewing Grand Thumb's videos. Like all he does is just review Grand Thumb shooting freaking torso targets. Like, well, yeah, actually yes, and that shotgun slug would definitely sever the aorta, and you would bleed out in seconds, and that would just be the end of you. You know what I mean? And he's wrestling with YouTube because YouTube demonetizes his shit. You know what I mean? But there's tons of I'm like, yeah, see, everybody out here is not making money like that. The economy is not in good health. And again, like I don't know what's going to happen in the grand scheme of things. But you can, like in 20 years, like it's almost like it's like the China's one child policy, right? Like they didn't feel the effects of that until 20 years later. Yeah, they had all these sons and they had no girls, to freaking raise because they were out there, drowning them in rivers and shit. Right. But now they're paying for the shit because now they got way too many men and not enough women. And so this situation with the young men not going to college, I mean, you're already seeing the effects of it. Women running around, I only want to date somebody who's on my level. I only want to date a man that's educated because I'm educated. I only think that's fair. Well, how's that going to work when you went to college, the ratio of males to females was 60-40? How is that going to work? Right? Now, granted, yeah, there are other avenues for men to make, money. Like, a man could become a police officer. Like in Jersey, state troopers start at six figures. They start at, state troopers, like they have to have a college degree in order to be a state trooper. Then again, so I guess that wouldn't count. But I'm saying, there's definitely, people who just move up the ranks and whatnot, depending on what township they're in that make, substantial money doing other things that don't require college. You see, but that whole situation is dwindling, and this is what you see with the alienation, of young white men who can't handle that shit. Because now these women are like, oh, well, I only want to date the top 10%. And social media has even just further exacerbated that. But I'm just saying, I think that you're going to see a lot more. This is why I tell black men, I'm like, you got to be vigilant. I got somebody I know right now who's married to a white woman, and I am begging him to freaking, get himself a firearm. I'm like, look, man, you out here just navigating and moving around, like as though like you don't have white nationalism on the rise. Like these white guys aren't feeling some type of way. You know what I mean? Like the economy is bad. You know what I mean? Like the worse it gets, the more violence you're gonna see. The more like they're not used to, not being in that position. You know what I'm saying? And the sense of we're the, being the superior group at the collective level. It's not going. That doesn't matter if it doesn't translate at the individual level. And when they go out there, they see people, doing better than them that are not of their group. They already, again, go read that article, Ghost of White People Past. They already feel some type of way about the Asians and the Indians, and they don't have any negative criminality stereotypes to speak of, and they feel some type of way about them, and they're doing it legitimately. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to black men who now have found other avenues via social media in order to make a buck, and they're more quick to adopt shit like that. You know what I mean? They're running around with the Dame Dash. I took the money and I flipped it. I took the money and I flipped it. You know what I mean? That's going to create a lot of animosity. Hell, you don't even have to have a white woman on your arm. You can have a black woman on your arm. Just pull up in that, that freaking, Hellcat, with the red eye. Pull up in the red eye and see if they don't feel some type of way. I ain't even say a Lambo. I said a red eye. Just pull up in a red eye, and they're going to be feeling some type of way because it was never like that before. You go back and you watch these documentaries, like it was almost guaranteed that if you were black, you were poor. You know what I mean? Like the whole concept of the interracial dating, that was a one-way street, right? Like that white woman told Cap's aunt at the hospital when they were nursing. She was like, I can get the best of yours, but you can't get the best of mine. That type of foul shit. Yeah, because there was that type of inequality going on. But now all of that is under threat. And identities will be frazzled. The boat will be rocked. And so, you're going to see people, that, in my opinion, are going to act out. You're going to see more of that. People don't want to hear this, but I'm telling you, I'm like, they're not used to this transition that has happened over the last 10 years or so, with social media. They haven't adapted to it. You know what I mean? Look how many white MGTOW channels. I'm sitting there, I'm blown away. Like, as a black man in America, right? We got to deal with racism, white supremacy, discrimination in the marketplace. That has had a direct impact on our ability to develop relationships with black women. From a financial stand, just the way that they view us. Y'all are weak. Y'all the white man's bitch. Y'all don't control nothing. I'm gonna get with a white man because that white man is on top. Right? That has had a direct impact on the dynamic with the relationship with black women. And now you have white men that are filing complaints. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening to the shit. And yeah, there's areas of gray where I can, I'm sitting there with my arms folded. I'm listening to white guys complain about, relationships and shit like that. I'm like, I thought y'all motherfuckers was on top. Right? I thought y'all were out here killing it and shit. And now they can't start relationships. See, they're not doing as well as a lot of times, black people, we like to go out here and we like to romanticize white success. We do. And it's easy to do if you live in a major metropolitan area, because that's where you will see gross inequalities. If you live in New York, you got people, paying, $4,000 in rent. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what type of money are you making to be able to pay $4,000 in rent? In rent. You know what I mean? Got freaking, luxury cars, in the basements of freaking, apartment buildings that are covered in dust because they just haven't driven it, in so long. Bought a Ferrari and the shit is collecting dust. Like freaking Richard Gere and Pretty Woman doesn't even know how to shift the damn thing. You see, so you can see that in your face in major metropolitan cities. You're not going to see that when you go out there, in the Midwest. You're not going to see that in rural America. So um I'm just saying that, like they're not that whole dream, like they got to adjust to, the reality, that the way that they thought it was going to be isn't happening anymore. And that's really where I think a lot of the anger comes from. But to sit there and see another group that they've been told is inferior to them thrive, in a decentralized economy. And again, they don't hustle. What is a hustle? I mean, seriously speaking, like when have you ever seen white guys on the side of the road trying to sell like water bottles and shit like that? They might do it at a sporting event or something like that. But I'm saying, like, you don't see as many white guys doing shit like that as you do black men. Like they got, like, I remember they had this stuff down in what was that? I think it was in Florida. They were getting, was it Florida? What state was it? It was Florida or was Texas or something like that. They called them the Water Boys. And there was one clip where even Fox News tried to jump on it. They were like, look, and they're harassing this white woman because the black guys, they were like hanging off of the woman's freaking Wrangler. You know what I mean? And they try to go and see they're harassing them and da 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 da. Like, and it's like I thought you were on they need to get a job, they need to do something, right? But then when they're doing it, then it becomes a problem because, just the optics of it, just the way that they view black men across the board. It's always through a negative lens. But I'm saying I'm not saying all white guys. I'm just saying as a collective, a lot of them they're not in the hustle, mentality. They're in the get a good job, get in the factory, put your 30 years in, get your full medical and dental, get your pension and retire, and then go fishing and do that, play with your grandkids until you die. That is their template. Their template is not to go out here and, throw everything, to the wind, burn that bridge behind them and go hustle. Black men, again, due to the racism in America, black men are way more inclined with the hustle. And I'm saying that as somebody who grew up in the burbs and knows nothing about hustling. Unfortunately, not in the street way that is so romanticized by so many people. So, I just think that I think that if I'm just saying black men need to be vigilant. Because I think as this gig economy, keeps, the hope, like, in other words, when white men lose hope, you need to be on your P's and Q's. Okay? When they lose hope, when they feel like, they're not winning, again, that's the type of energy that burnt down Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's the type of energy that burnt down Ocoee, Florida. That's the type of energy that had them, storm on, those sharecroppers in Elaine, Arkansas. That's the type of energy that burnt down Wilmington, North Carolina. Okay, when they start getting jealous and they start feeling some type of way because they feel that their position is slipping. You see? When they start feeling that their position is threatened, that's when you start seeing, the top supermarket type of situation. That's where you start seeing the Kroger's type of situation. That's where you start seeing the AME church type of situation. That's where you start seeing that type of shit. And I don't think that Too many of us really take that into consideration. When white people are doing good, they look at you like, oh, let me bless you with something because I'm just so successful that, here's something for you, Negro, right? Black people might get a little bit of something out of it. Our standard of living will go up a little bit because things are good. But when things are bad for them, nah, man, they start circling the wagons. They start feeling some type of way. And then especially with the negative stereotypes that black people already have that surround black male identity, especially. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like we can't have anything. Everything that we get, they're going to swear up and down that we got it from some ill-begotten means. It's never like, oh, you see a brother and he's got a Lambo and shit like that. It's either, oh, you got to be an athlete. You got to be a rapper. You know what I mean? You got to be a drug dealer. Like, you can't be like, hey, man, what do you do for a living? I flip houses. No, it can't be that. It can't be, oh, I flip houses. It can't be, oh, I renovate properties. Oh, it can't be, I run several Airbnbs. You know what I mean? Like that when you start, again, the whole thing, the beauty about the gig, the beauty about it is it does give you that sort of that freedom. And this is where you get the women, like when you really want to talk about what it really means to be in that top 10% that women really want. You know what I mean? It's not, you can't really put a financial amount on it. You really can't, because, like example, let's say you're a doctor and you're making $400,000. You're on call all the time. If let's say you're like a hospitalist or whatever, and you want to work the graveyard shift and you want to moonlight and other type of stuff, like you're not going to see your family a whole lot. Right. So it's that whole, time versus money. This was what Captain Solo struggled with. He was making damn good money. He was like 1994. He was making 95, like one of his at the end of the year, he was making $95,000 in 1994 at 25 years old because of all the overtime he was putting in. He was just, every time overtime came up, Cap was on it. He was working Sundays and all that other stuff. The problem is that he didn't have any time to meet any women. And then when he would hit up the women like, oh yeah, let's set this up, da 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 da, he would have to plan 2 weeks ahead. And then, come that Friday or whatever that they were supposed to go out, she would flake out on him. Why? Because she was running around with the drug dealer who had time and money. And when you really want to talk about financial freedom, it's about having time and money, which means that you have to be making money while you're taking a shit. I don't know if y'all ever saw that. It was like I think it was Vice or something like that. It was like it had a black guy who was, he was a delivery guy, and it had a white guy who was a day trader. You know what I mean? And it was like, and it had like the counter of how much money they were making. And the day trader, the minute he woke up in the morning, before he even started his first trade, he was like on the toilet taking a shit, and his counter was still going up. His meter was still going up, in terms of like money that, he was making, which I don't know how that's possible, because I'm like, don't you have to actively be trading in order to make money? But, again, he was already killing it. I think he had a YouTube channel. He's got social media. He's been making money just hand over fist. He's not even doing anything. He hasn't even started his day. You know what I mean? He's getting ready to begin his day trading. But because of all the other things that he's got going on, the money's just rolling in, even as he's not even actively engaged in it. That is the only way to truly be financially dependent. You know what I mean? You think Elon Musk clocks in and clocks out? You think Jeff Bezos clocks in and clocks out? No. They make money. They make money when they could just wake up. I don't feel like doing shit today, and they're still making money. And this is the downside of the whole aspect of the 9 to 5, and this is one of the reasons why the working man, it has just died, both in the white community and the black community. It's died because now you have other ways for people to make money, and especially from a woman's perspective. If I'm going to be with anybody, why not be with the guy that has time and money? He's got the time to actually enjoy the money and do things, which, if we're going to make that the standard, I mean, talk about some really unrealistic shit. You know what I'm saying? Even most, wealthy men, successful men, you know what I mean? Like, they're busy doing what the hell that they want to do. They don't have to be there. They can take a day off. They don't have anybody to really answer to. But the whole reason they got to where they got is because they were putting in the time. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people over romanticize that, and they have this crazy fantasy, about, this guy that's like, that doesn't have to, he makes money because he's like Bruce Wayne or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like everybody like loves Batman and Batman and Batman. I'm like, when the hell did Batman sleep? You know what I'm saying? How do you run Wayne Enterprise and be Batman and get some sleep? You know what I'm saying? You got a bullet in your shoulder. You know what I mean? And yet he gets up the next day and acts as when the fuck does Batman sleep? It's like nobody ever asked these damn questions. Same thing I said about the damn predators. I'm like, and where did they science this shit? Where's the classroom of predators doing the math equations on their cloaking devices? They'll never show you that shit. They just have all this technology, right? I'm like, when did y'all fit? When I want to see the predators and when they broke out of their atmosphere with their first spaceship. I want to see them actually be civil enough to where they can actually freaking coordinate a landing on another planet. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just skip over that in the predators. I'm like, really? So you're gonna have like these like savage primitive hunter-gatherer types that just arbitrarily have all this technology and plasma cannons and throwing disc and freaking, all this technology. I'm like, but where did they come up with the shit? Shit has to be invented. The time has to be put in. What is there, like a classroom of nerd aliens that were figuring that shit out? You can't hyper masculinity, it to death all the way through that type of technology. This shit never added up to me. But people, they the way that they talk about a lot of this stuff, it's like they just want it all. People just want it all. And men, run around trying to satisfy these women's needs just so that they can get access, to be able to, whether it's sex or whether it's to start a family and have children and all that other stuff, to be able to pass on the wealth that they accrued. But the markets, in my opinion, the sexual market and the economic market are in absolute flux right now. And, Mother Nature does not give a fuck about how you get there. Mother Nature does not give a fuck about Christianity, Jesus, righteousness. You know what I mean? Like, if a dude is a straight savage, an amoral savage, if he's Genghis Khan and he goes through and he rapes, pillages, and plunders, and the women get with him and he produces 1,000 children, well, guess what? In the grand scheme of evolutionary things, he won. He won. You know what I mean? The other person can sit there and they can say, I want you to, and even think about this. You want to really talk about some religious God type of shit, right? Think about it. The person that does all the rape, pillaging, and plundering, the person that is the most amoral, if that moves women on some sort of primitive instinctual level, right? And the Christian or the Muslim or the religious person will sit there and they'll tell you about how, well, that person is evil and they're going to go to hell and the rapture and all this other shit. They'll sit there and they'll say that. And I'm like, but you only have one child. Or you don't have any kids. But the person that was basically running around as Satan on earth is producing all the kids. Right? And so when you die and you're gone and you're not here and you're in heaven, sitting on Jesus' lap for all of eternity, like folks want to sit there and tell me how it's going to go down. It's the Ray Ray and Pookie's genes. The thug, the Genghis Khan, his genes are going forward. His culture, his identity, his everything he's instilled in his children is going on. So the whole world that you say God created in 6 days is looking more like him than looking like you in all of your righteousness and justice. Because Mother Nature doesn't give a fuck about your holy book, doesn't give a fuck about your religion, your God, your morals, your principles, none of that shit. However you operate on planet Earth, it's like the way that it is do women find it attractive or not? Or what is your genetic fitness? And if you look at the definition of genetic fitness, it is not about who has the biggest muscles. It's not about who's the coolest, who has the most swag. It's not about any of that. It's simply about how many children you produce. That's all it's about. What is your genetic fitness is about how many children you are producing. The end. So it's a different way of looking at it. But by the same token, I think that humans are much more sophisticated than that. And especially in a society or as a group where wealth is passed on, there's another aspect of genetic fitness that I don't think Darwinism covers, which is, as we already know, the poor, they have tons of children. They disproportionately have more children. But the ruling class controls all of the wealth. And so in terms of societal genetic fitness, as long if you're maintaining power, then your children, your progeny get, prime selection in terms of mates because they have substantial amount of resources that make them attractive to be able to, facilitate, a particular lifestyles. So, that's another factor that comes in. So again, if you have both, which I think, for black men, I think that's what one of the biggest threats are. The most dangerous black man in the world, seriously speaking, and it was so funny, is this was essentially covered in a Bronx Tale, with Cologino and Sonny. Because what did Cologino get? Cologino got 2 educations. He got the education from his father, the hardworking man, and he got the education from the streets, which was Sonny. Right now, you can't sleeve. So he got 2 education. That's a dangerous motherfucker. That's the most dangerous individual in the world. Which is a guy that has that operates, in both worlds and can navigate both worlds. You give a street dude money. I mean, look at what, like, when you look at women, right? They lust and desire these dudes. It's like on an insane level. They lust these dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like intrinsically, even when they don't have money, these guys are lusted because of their, I don't give a fuck how they move, operate, and everything else like that, right? Despite all the shit we hear, I want a God-fearing Christian man that has a sweet twinkle of Jesus in his eye and he loves children and loves Christ. Like, bullshit. Bullshit when you look at what actually gets these women wet. But if you take a guy like that, and this is essentially what the rappers and shit have accomplished, you take a guy like that and you throw riches at him, it's over. It's over. Everybody else might as well just pack their bags up and go home. It's over. Because again, not only does he have, time and money, but, he's already what women instinctually tap into, which is that whole rebellious, persona, that whole rebellious attitude. And I personally think that the reason why women find that shit so attractive is because it keeps society in flux. Like, it's like you can get with the guy that provides stability if you're looking for stability and a lifestyle, and you perceive that man to be a participating member of the dominant group that is winning, right? Because like that's the whole thing. Like let's say you got a white woman, she looks at a white man. The white man is a part of a bigger, greater infrastructure. Okay. But then there's also the aspect of on an individual level, okay, what happens if he's not reaping the benefits of that white infrastructure and then that doesn't translate over to you and your children? Then what? Then how does that look? You see? And so what the street culture and the thugs and all that other stuff, which largely is black men who have been excluded from the society, they represent that rebellious nature of those that will topple the system because they break the system's rules. And then there's other aspects in there as well in terms of, her not feeling so judged because he's already made mistakes or he's broken the rules or he's not going to hold her to any particular standard that she has to live up to because he's a rule breaker. So if he can break the rules, she can break the rules, right? And it's a more comfortable situation for her to be in. So there's other dynamics as to why women, will gravitate towards that. But I'm saying, it is a evolutionary gamble. Governments have been toppled, leaders have been toppled. Like when you think about it, like if you happen to be, when I don't know, give me like the mob families, like the Gambino family coming into power, right? If you were the woman that got with the Gambino family, you know what I'm saying? Then and then they made a move on another, mob family, and they took them out, and then now you're with the mob boss. You benefited. You benefited from his savagery. You benefited from his rule breaking. But if you were the one and you got with the guy who lost, the guy that got killed, hell, you might have gotten killed with him. So, it's kind of like, women, playing this little balancing act. It's like, okay, well, how much do I want to gamble, on this table? You know what I mean? And women, even in the middle of conflict, they will switch sides. They will switch sides. Women it's all about what's in the best interest of the woman. There is no quote unquote race loyalty. I don't care what the race is. I don't believe in that concept. I believe that if shit gets bad enough, she will abandon and she will switch sides. And I don't even think anybody can argue with this. I'm like, freaking, women initiate 80% of divorces. And what is the primary reason for divorce? Money, lack of money, financial issues. They will jump ship quick, fast, and in a hurry. Everybody running around taking vows and for better or for worse. Bullshit. You might as well take that and for worse out of it. There's a video on Instagram or TikTok of a I think it's like a Nigerian wedding, and she was like, and the preacher's up there talking about and for richer and for poorer, and she was like and for richer and for richer. You know what I mean? She was dead ass serious, and the whole church was bust out laughing and everything. She was like and for richer and for richer. She was like, no, we ain't doing no poverty. Fuck that. Again, that's freaking women. They'll switch sides in a heartbeat. So, I think, most certainly when it comes to women being a major motivator for men, I know that they are, but men seriously need to reevaluate that. I'm saying just across the board. Obviously, with the, the tribalism and the group shit, the racial shit, it's always going to be on the table. That's not to say that you don't have, white women who are white supremacist and racist themselves. But I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, women are, you just got to look at just the history of women. Women are not fucking loyal. And honestly, I think that even now, I think that white men are being faced with that reality. Kat was listening to some podcasts, I don't know, is a podcast or radio or something like that. And they were talking about, black men, getting they're getting white women, and not only getting white women, they're getting the pretty ones, and this is what this guy was saying on the video. And I was like, oh, please send me that link. And see, I don't look at it like you'll have like idiots like Ask Nathan, whatever, Ask Nathaniel, all these, even Mad Bus Driver. I'm like, bro, stop it. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, see, we're winning. And I'm like, no, you need to stop looking at it like that. When I see that, when I hear that shit, when I hear white men file a complaint about that shit, I'm like, oh, that's danger. That's danger. That means they're out here feeling the loss. They're out here feeling, that they're losing their position. I'm like, oh shit, here comes that birth of a nation stuff. I'm like, oh shit, it's not good. Because especially when it comes to you'll have guys that are saying this that are, either damn near boomers themselves or older or whatever. And then, they'll say it, they'll mention it. Yeah, I see this going on. And, they just put it out there. You know what I mean? But the ones that really get fired up about that shit are the young men. The young men that haven't found their way in life yet. They haven't acquired the necessary tools to attract the women that they want. And then you throw on top of that the fact that they don't have, those sort of, the street skills. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that. I was watching I wish I could find that video. I don't even know if I have it, but I was watching some video. They were interviewing some white woman on the street, and she was talking like she was black. I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, what is this? She was from Michigan. I was like, whoa. I was like, I really wasn't expecting the way that she was talking, but it goes to show you, the how things have changed. And I've already said, the black community is very open. It's very open when it comes to people who come from poverty, because, it's created an alternative space where it's a different value system. Yeah, money still matters, but it doesn't matter to the same degree as it does in the dominant society, where the dominant society is like, oh, if you're not rich, you ain't shit. But the black community is like, nah, if you have clout in the streets, if you put work in the streets, respectability, politics, and all that sort of, whether you have clout and all that stuff, like, then people let you in. Are you funny, charismatic, entertainment? Can you freestyle? Can you, all the type of stuff where people will be like, oh, he down. That's why black people end up complaining about cultural appropriation and start complaining about how, people are able to enter our spaces all the time. But people want to enter black spaces quiet as it's kept until their ship arrives, then they jump out of it. They'll quickly switch up out of it. Like as people call out about J-Lo. And quiet as it's kept, even the Hispanic community doesn't really fuck with J-Lo. It's just one of those things that, that go on because, the black community, is like, hey, as long as you a cool motherfucker, yeah, hey, you can come in here. And that's where you get the Eminem types and like, this freaking white girl who sounds like she's black on TikTok or whatever. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what? I'm like, damn, damn. Even the way that she said, like, even the way she was using B. You know what I'm saying? I be chilling. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is a white girl from the Midwest. I'm like, what is going on here? And this is where, in my opinion, I think that shit happens because, what happens when there is no benefit to being white? What happens when you're only a rock's throw away from the same poverty that black people are in? Like, where do you get your I'm still better than them? Where do you get that? Oh, and then you throw in, whatever amount of thirst or value will come from, black men that, will have colorism or self-hate issues. And then that just fucking exacerbates it. You know what I mean? But like, where do the Max the Demon, type, where do those type of white boys come from? How do they enter? Where do the Paul Walls come from? Where does that come from? You know what I mean? Where do the Whitey Fords come from? Where does that come from? Where does where they feel more comfortable around black people than white people? I think it comes from same thing I hear from Indians where, if you're poor and you're white people that have money are extremely judgmental and they don't want to be judged. And the black community is a place where, we're all in dysfunction. Nobody is judging here, unless, of course, you're one of the black people that are, sick of the problems that come out of these sort of standardless, judge-free environments where everybody tries to make that which is dysfunctional and broken, the new standard, or try to, at the very least, make it okay. Man, don't be coming around here with them hostility standards. Don't be coming around here with them white people standards. And I have my mixed feelings about that because, white people standards, it is fucked up for them to establish standards and then see to it that you don't have the resources to even meet those standards. It's like, the freaking, motherfucker would be able to fix this or repair that or get their teeth fixed. Yeah, if they had the resources. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what people don't get about that. They'll sit there and they'll be like, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that. Yeah, because they don't have the resources. I can see if they had the same money that you had and then they just didn't do whatever. You know what I mean? Like motherfucker, you making X amount of dollars and you can't get a lawn service to cut the grass. How much money are you making? Oh, I make $275, and you can't get a lawn service to cut your grass. Like, see, then that would make sense to slam them about having shitty ass standards. But when you have somebody that's like, hey man, why don't you have the grass cut? You know what I mean? Oh, I only make $14 an hour. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, brother. You know what I mean? Like, trying to hold people to standards that they can't meet because they don't have the resources. Then you have the audacity to go out of your way to see to it that they don't have the resources. The shit is insane. But anyway, like I said, I think that you're going to see a lot more white men feeling some type of way. First off, I think the interracial shit is an inevitability with people living on top of each other and each generation becoming slightly more, progressive or not caring, and the fact that you don't have the same, economic incentives, especially in the white community that existed in the past, for the average white person. I think that presents an issue. And then you have social media that, people look to and they begin to think that, that's more representative of what the numbers actually are just because they see an abundance of it on, social media and TikTok, on Instagram and TikTok, so, like I said, the decentralization of the economy, I think it is definitely a positive for black men. It still is kind of sad that, we can't navigate in these, in the private sector. I mean, you see this shit with the racism at Tesla. You see this shit with the what other corporation? I forget what other corporation that just recently that came out in the media. Just the passive aggressive, sorts of shit that goes on, the lack of promotion. I think even CNN got hit with that, the lack of diversity when it comes to the executives and whatnot. So, people getting overlooked, and I'm like, how do you sell that? When you want to talk about black people, oh, go to college, get an education, put yourself in debt. And again, I already said, you can't sell a dream that you don't own. This is the whole problem with not controlling, your own job markets. You selling your kid, put yourself in debt, go to college, and then come out and then beg a white person for a job that already has a track record of not hiring you because, we already have one Negro in here. That's all we need. We don't need any more. You see what I'm saying? Like, so... how do you go up against, how do you challenge that? How do you sell that idea to young people? So, everything that the streets have been talking, I personally think that's why it has, more respect in the black community in the grand scheme of things. On top of the fact that a lot of the black people that do find themselves in positions where they're making decent money in white spaces, they don't do anything with it. They don't organize with each other. They don't put anything together. They just kind of, They're like, well, I'm living good and I'm going to move to a white suburb and my kids are going to go to a predominantly white school. And this is black empowerment. And then your son's going to fall in love with the white girls that he freaking went to school with. And your daughter, is going to go out there and she's going to be thirsting after Chad. And I'm like, I don't see the black empowerment in that. So when you have these folks that, I took the money and I flipped it. When you have this sort of, Dame Dash, situation, that's going to get a lot more respect, than, other black people that are trying to sell a dream that they don't own and just simply, work for white folks and call it a day and not actually individually enrich themselves. So I think currently right now, I think it's positive. Like when you what's that show? What's that channel called? I keep saying it, Earn Your Leisure. That channel. I always want to say Live Your Leisure, but it's Earn Your Leisure. That channel where they're talking about, how they were making money. And I mean, the brothers are doing a lot of things that have nothing to do with corporate America. Guys that don't even have degrees. And in not having degrees, don't have a whole bunch of student debt. So I think it's a positive thing, that guys are figuring out other avenues. But at the same time, I think it's a negative thing in the grand scheme of things, because now you have a bunch of hustlers, a bunch of people who know how to flip money, but you don't have anybody that has any real skills that you would need to go to a university for. You need to go to a university to have a lawyer, for those people who have businesses and filing for LLCs and everything else. And what happens when you get sued? You got to get a lawyer. You know what I mean? Or you're going to need, while you're eating high off the hog and, your cholesterol's through the roof, you're going to need to see a physician. But what happens if you have, black people saying, well, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to go to get an education and everything else and put myself in debt and everything and whatnot. Because all I can hope for is to, basically graduate and go work for, a hospital that we don't own, operator control. Name a hospital that has a black name after it. You know what I mean? Most of them have Jewish names. They don't have black names. You know what I mean? So, Goldberg, Goldstein, Goldstein, whatever. Like those are the names of the hospitals and shit. Ross something, like Rosenberg, Rosenbaum, those are the names of the hospitals. They're not the black hospitals. So there's a lot of things in terms of other professions that you would need for a community to actually function that you're not going to get. And I think that in a couple of years, you're going to see a college deficit. We already went through or currently even have right now, it's the dirty job deficit. Speaking about Mike Rao, there's a dirty job deficit, but now we're going to see, a college deficit, in terms of having black people that have those skills. I'm not totally against college. I think there's many things that, I think that education should be structured, to get people to, especially to develop their critical thinking skills. But, in terms of the cost of it, it's not something that I could justify and encourage somebody to go that route when they can do other things. Again, I'll tell everybody, if you're 18 years old, 17 years old, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I'm gonna tell you right now, go into anything that pertains to computer science, software engineering, cybersecurity, and many of the other things that will allow you to know how to navigate, the internet space, to whether it's creating apps or whether it's, having, an Amazon store or, having, other, what's the other, Shopify and all these other things where you can have your little online stores and drop shipping or whatever the hell you're doing. You know what I mean? I know some people will speak against that stuff, but I'm saying if you have those type of tech skills, you're going to be able to do things, especially, with the, in the short period of time that you can get those skills, the the lack of cost. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to get a major return on your investment than if you go to school and you go to anything else. There's tons of black people right now that are suffering because they went to school for underwater basket weaving. They went to school for social sciences and whatnot, and African American studies, and like, what the fuck are you gonna do with that? And psychology. I love my women that go to college for psychology. You know, I'm like, and don't become a psychologist. And it's like, stop going to school and getting these pontification degrees. Stop that shit. Dubai, I mean, freaking Saudi Arabia won't even allow you to do that. They'll let you go to school. If you were Saudis, they'll let you go to school anywhere in the world for a science degree, a STEM degree. That's what black people need to be focusing on, not any of this other bullshit, you know. But, you know, go where the money is. Stop all this follow your passion bullshit. Follow the money. If you're really serious about, you know, increasing the quality of life, you know, for your family and your community, it's about the money. It ain't about Hotep. It ain't about looking out your third eye. It ain't about white Jesus. It's not about a law. It's about that goddamn money. You know, so anyway, I've already made this video long enough. That's my video. Damn, 89 minutes. Fuck. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.